Hi, I'm Jolly, and the purpose of this channel is to help high-powered women just like you flourish in 8 specific areas of your life. Today, we are talking about spiritual health, specifically rest. And I know many of you don't understand what rest means. How do you even do that, especially in our fast-paced culture? What does rest look like? How does it feel? How long do I rest? What do I do when I rest? These are all fantastic and important questions, and we're going to answer them today. But before I go on, I just want to let you know that I am giving away a free special gift to one woman, and it's going to be at the end of the show. So make sure that you stay tuned so you can see how you can get that gift. Now, there was a woman who once said, you can either make time for rest or rest will take all the time it needs. The choice is yours. That insightful woman, Dr. Saundra Dalton-Smith, is here with us today. Dr. Dalton-Smith is a board-certified physician, speaker, and award-winning author. She is an international well-being thought leader featured in numerous media outlets, including MSNBC, Women's Day, Fox, Psychology Today, CNN Health, and TED.com. She is an author of numerous books, including the bestseller Sacred Rest, which we're going to talk about today. This is a book about recover your life, renew your energy, and restore your sanity. And in this book, Dr. Dalton-Smith gives us 7 different types of rest to optimize productivity, increase overall happiness, overcome burnout, and to live your best life. Dr. Dalton-Smith, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the show.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Now, Dr. Dalton-Smith, with the pandemic, so many of us were forced to slow down, if not stop, and just evaluate our lives. You wrote this book back in 2017, Sacred Rest. And did you even think about the timeliness of what this book would mean for us today during the pandemic?
Absolutely not. I think when I was writing the book, I was kind of thinking more along the lines of there were just so many people that I knew who were burned out then, and 2015, 16, 17, during that time frame, that it never even dawned on me that we would approach anything like we have with this pandemic. I think a lot of us thought that, oh, well, when I can work from home, then my life would be great. I'd be, fully energized. And I think that was a surprise for a lot of people that, honestly, they feel more drained now. And a lot of them are in their ideal situation, working from home, and not having to commute any place, but they're still exhausted. So no, I had no clue how God would use this book kind of in the process.
Yeah, I think it's so necessary, so timely. And I just love the title of the book, Sacred Rest. That alone just draws you to the book. Can I ask what series of events or event in your life led you to write this book?
Well, the simple answer to that is I burned out. So as a physician, I had been in practice, well, now it's almost 20 years, but at that time, about 10 years into practice, and was very busy, had a very thriving medical practice at the same time of being a fairly new mom. We had 2 kids back to back, 21 months apart. So I had 2 toddlers while running a medical practice. And, I don't think I really understood at the time how much energy it takes for motherhood. So it was like I had 2 full-time jobs is what it felt like. And just really got to a place of depletion. And I felt like, for the most part, most of healthcare and our culture at the time, it was really focusing on sleep. We had the whole sleep revolution and everybody's focusing on getting better sleep. And I was doing all those things. I was getting what I felt like was high quality sleep at the time. We're talking back in 2004 and 2006 and, around that time frame. So I felt like I was getting extremely great sleep, but I wasn't getting any better. I wasn't feeling, any better at that time, despite getting, 8, 9 hours of sleep. And I think that's when it really just dawned on me, there's something else going on. I'm not just physically tired. There's something more in me that's drained. And I think as a physician, my mindset's always on diagnosis. So it was, how do
Mhm.
I diagnose what's got me so tired? And that started the research and the digging and the looking.
Sure. I love this book so much, and it hits home to me so much because I was just like you, I was burned out. I'm a physician assistant by trade. And working for 13 years, I just kept going, going, going because that's my nature. That's what I was ingrained and taught to do. And, having a type A personality, that's what you do. Until the Lord literally took me out before the pandemic and forced me to rest. I felt like he uh, just there was no other options but to rest. And I fought it so much in the beginning, but then I surrendered to the process. I and it was the most profound, it was the most cleansing and healing experience that I ever went on. And it was just so beautiful. So I identify with so many of the things that you said in the book.
Yeah, I love that because I think I always say you either take time to rest or rest will make you take time for it.
That's right.
And so I think, sometimes some of us are like that. We're kind of hot wired for activity. We're doers just by nature. We're kind of naturally those Martha type personalities
Yeah.
who, are always thinking about the next thing that needs to be done. And I think the thing about that is just to be aware that we're needed. You have to have those people who have that mentality, but those people just have to be aware of their own propensity to not rest. And then to make a point of getting the rest they need, because my favorite people to work with are high achievers, are the people who are just natural doers, because I can relate to them. I really can't relate to the people who are like, oh yes, I rest all the time, no problem with that. That's not my personality. Even today, that's still not my personality. My normal personality is give me something to do and get out of my way and let me go do it. So I constantly have to be aware of my need for rest. I'm constantly having to do a self-assessment. Am I tired this morning? Every morning I wake up, I ask myself, do I feel energized? And if the answer comes back, not really, then I have to start thinking, okay, where did I not get rest over the past 24 hours or that week where I needed rest? And start looking at it kind of immediately rather than doing what I was doing before all of this, which is just ignoring it and praying I could get to the weekend or the vacation or some miracle that was going to help me kind of start feeling better.
Yes, that's so good. So many of us think, and it kind of opened up my eyes when you wrote at the beginning of the book that sleep is not rest, because we think, well, sleep is a form of rest. Why is sleep not rest?
Sleep is a form of rest. That's exactly right. But it is not, they are not the same thing. And I think that is where people kind of get off balance because they use the words interchangeably. I'm going to sleep. I'm going to go take a rest tonight. Yeah. And so they use the words interchangeably. And so when they sleep, when they get those 7, 8, 9 hours and they wake up the next morning exhausted, it's like, okay, there's just no hope for me because I did the rest, but it didn't do anything. But what they're not seeing is that sleep is just one tiny part of it. In the book, I talk about 7 different types of rest, including the physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, social, sensory, and creative. And so if you put all your buckets into just that sleep basket, you're basically ignoring 6 other types of rest and even one of the types of physical rest, because sleep is just the passive form of physical rest. And you still have the active forms like stretching or a massage or, going on a leisure walk. So we can't put all of our attention on just, one of the 7 and expect to feel well rested.
Yes. Now, you mentioned in the book, which I also love, you said rest is spiritual. And as soon as I read that, I was like, yes, it is. Because I don't know, just something in my spirit was like, it is more to it than the physical. You said rest is a taste of heaven. Can you paint a picture for us? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think very often we get, particularly in our current culture, we get into this kind of strive mode. And, one of my favorite scriptures comes from Psalms 46:11, and it talks about be still and know that I am God. Well, one of the translations says, cease striving and know that I am God. And I think sometimes what ends up happening is we get so kind of wrapped up in the work that we don't really understand kind of the relationship between rest and our own spiritual beliefs. Because for many of us, we feel as if resting, we're not accomplishing anything. So it feels like if I'm resting, then I'm not moving towards my goals, my purposes, my dreams. And we don't really see that the rest actually has a relationship with our ability to trust that the God who gave us those dreams and abilities and purposes can actually help us to get there by honoring his way of doing things. And so I sometimes have people actually, when they are struggling with this, answer the question for themselves, do you really trust God?
Wow.
Because we rest at the extent of our trust. Because if you really trust that God has a plan and purpose for your life, as Jeremiah 29:11 says, if you really believe that he's for you and not against you, if you really believe that he's helping you to get to those places that are destined for you, then that means that when you're resting, you're not losing ground. When you're resting, you're not missing the ball. You're not kind of, just taking your hands completely off of it and feeling like, oh, well, now I got to do twice as much work the next week because I rested this day. No, you feel like in resting, I am showing you just how much I trust you.
And isn't it true? And you speak from your experience, and I can speak from mine. When you rest, I don't know what happens. You have the ability to do more in the fewer hours than if you didn't rest.
Yeah, because you're actually functioning from a full place. A lot of us, we are pouring out into the world from our emptiness. So we're functioning. One of the terms I'm often saying is that people are functional burnouts. We have a whole country of functional burnouts. The World Health Organization defines burnout as being tired all the time, no joy for the work that you do, and then the work that you do is of lesser quality of what it could be. Well, that's most of what people are, you go anywhere, you go to a restaurant, somebody misses your order and it's like, how hard can it be? Well, most of us are functional burnout. We're not functioning on our highest capacity. We're functioning from a place of exhaustion. And so when we think about it that way, we really have to then evaluate, how do we want to show up in the world? Is that how we want to show up? Kind of show up giving half of ourselves because that's all we have to pour? Or do we want to actually do it from a place of fullness? Because when you do it from a place of fullness, there's a grace that goes with it where you are able to accomplish what seems like more with even less time.
And why do you think it's so difficult for the type A go-getter, high-powered woman to stop? Why we feel it, but why is it so hard for us to stop?
Well, I'll speak for myself rather than kind of characterize everybody, but I know for myself, a big part of that was I had my worth wrapped up in my work. So if I wasn't actively doing something, if I wasn't accomplishing something, if there wasn't an accolade that went with it, or a big star that went on the end of it, then it wasn't valuable. I had my worth kind of all wrapped up in my work. If I wasn't working, then I wasn't worthy. And so I had to disassociate the two. I had to understand that, whether I accomplish something great today or not, my life is still valuable. And so I think we have to kind of evaluate some of our own head trash, mind beliefs, the limiting beliefs that we may have between work and rest, and go from there, really start from there, because I find that it's those limiting beliefs that really affect women the most. That's actually my very first book, Set Free to Live Free, Breaking Through the 7 Lies Women Tell Themselves. It came out years before Sacred Rest came out, because that was what I found was the biggest holdup in me advancing in my career, my own limiting beliefs, and really having to break through some of those.
I love it. I love that you said your worth was wrapped up in your work, in the thing that you did. That's where you had your identity, and that was true for me. I didn't know who I was outside of what I did. And you're right. If it wasn't going to give me a title or an award or something, I was like, oh, why do it? I want to chase this thing. Why is it so important for high-powered women to stop and rest in order to really live a fulfilled life? Because we think just being successful, hey, I'm making money, I'm being successful. Why is that necessarily not leading a fulfilled life?
Well, unfortunately, when we get kind of in that mindset that we're always kind of, as you actually said the word, you were kind of chasing certain things. I think that's how a lot of us feel. We're kind of always chasing the next thing. when you're always chasing the next thing, you never have time to enjoy what you've done. So it's always feels unfinished. You always feel like you're not satisfied. But it's not that you don't have the potential to experience satisfaction, it's that you actually haven't taken the time to reflect on what you've already accomplished. And that's really one of the gifts. I talk about the gifts of rest at the second half of Sacred Rest. And that's one of the gifts of reflection. It gives you an opportunity to see what you've already accomplished, to actually taste and see the goodness that you've produced. My son did this project a while back where he was studying bees. And, one of the things that was really interesting to me was, bees are consistent producers. You always talk about being busy as a bee. But if you think about it, bees are busy producing something that is so sweet and beautiful that the entire world enjoys using it, but they don't enjoy the benefit of it. They're worked up in the worker bees, we hear. And so we don't want to be worker bees where we are so busy producing goodness that the world's enjoying, but we're not actually even enjoying the beauty we're producing. And I find that that's what a lot of women are doing. They are, I get really, and I won't name names, I get really sad when I think about some of the women who have committed suicide and we look at their lives and we're like, wow, but they were doing such fantastic stuff. Yeah, they were producing fantastic stuff that they didn't even have the chance to fully enjoy themselves, because that emotional rest that's needed, that social rest that's needed, that sensory rest, all of those things that actually play a part in our own mental health. If we're not taking time for that, eventually we become just like those worker bees. We work ourselves into a place of depletion that ultimately will end us.
That's so good. But I can hear that woman CEO, Dr. Dalton-Smith. I can hear the business owner who's saying, Dr. Smith, I don't have time to rest. If I leave, the business stops. My company is going to be in mayhem. What is practical steps that my high-powered woman can do to implement rest? Like, how long is the process? What are some things she can do to rest?
Yeah, I love that question, in part because some of the women that I work with, that's a common question. That's a common statement, I should say, that I hear. And every time that I hear that, I tend to ask something that ticks most of them off, because I'm like, aren't you the CEO of this company you own? And they go, yes, I'm the CEO. I say, well, it sounds like you're one of the staff employees, because that's a staff employee feeling, that you're bound to something to the point that your life is so wrapped up into it that you can't even, as a CEO, step back and have time and space to visionary the rest of your company. Because if your energy is all wrapped up in the day-to-day, then there's some delegation issues that need to take place, because you as the CEO should have this grace in your business to be able to have time to just vision cast, which means time to break away from the business for a moment to reflect on it from an outside perspective. And there's a growth that has to happen with that. But that process starts with you beginning to see that your lack of rest is actually costing you money. Because the way you're functioning right now, you can never get to visionary status because you're so bound up into the business that you can't break free from it to even do anything. And so, when I usually say that, it's kind of like this, and it's like, oh, yeah, okay, I can see that. I can see that. Now what? And so we always start kind of with small steps, because I think for most people, you can't necessarily say, okay, well, now I'm going to take a week-long visionary sabbatical so I can just go dream about what the next stage of my business looks like. We start off with the day. What are some moments in your day where you can actually clear your headspace, where you can actually kind of break free long enough just so that your mind's not constantly rummaging around? That could be a brain dump that you do at the end of the day. That could be, setting aside 20 minutes that you're going to take a walk out in nature or something during the day, just so that you can get a little bit of creative rest. That may be, setting aside some mini sabbaticals where one Saturday a month you take 4 hours. You can use, most of us can find, we might not be able to find a full day, but we can carve out 4 hours that we're going to, go do something just for us, just so we can kind of recenter ourselves and kind of fill up whatever the basket is that's gotten empty. Whether that's a 4 hour, lunch with a friend, that you're just going to go hang out in a restaurant, sip on something, have a meal together, go for a shopping spree together, whatever it is, whatever it is that fills you back up, making some space in that and putting some priorities on it. Because what you prioritize, you'll make room for. And I feel like that's the big issue for most of us. We don't prioritize our need for rest, so we don't make room for it. But we prioritize kind of all of these other things. And sometimes what we're prioritizing are not things that actually align with our current priorities. Because, if you're prioritizing something out of guilt, fear, or shame, I'm going to volunteer this weekend at my kid's school because, well, I don't want to be the only mama who's not volunteering.
Right.
Okay, you're doing that out of shame, which you should just tell them, no, I'm not doing that. Let somebody else who wants to do that, but I'm not doing it. And so we have to be able to take ownership of our yeses and nos and realizing that that is part of self-care. Setting those boundaries is part of your self-care.
Love it. Love it. Dr. Dalton-Smith, one last question. How has your life transformed since you introduced rest in your life? How is it completely different?
Wow. I would probably say this for me, it started a long time ago, long before a book ever, came out of it. And so my life right now looks so different than how I did before. Before I would not even think about, am I tired? Tired was just how life was.
Right.
Being fatigued was just the normal. So it never even was a concept I cared about or even thought about. I just felt like I had to deal with it. Now I am very quick to determine when I don't feel well rested. I can tell the difference. It's complete. I show up as a different person, well rested, than when I'm fatigued. And so because I'm always wanting to kind of show up my best self, I'm very protective of my rest boundaries. Now, sometimes I miss the boat altogether, just to be straightforward. There are still times where it's like, oh no, I can do it. But whenever I kind of dismiss my needs for rest and try to just push through, I am quickly reminded of how bad it feels. And I always want to get back to that place of feeling well rested.
Yes, love it. Ladies, if you do not have time to rest, you got to get this book. If you are burned out, if you're spinning the wheels at both ends and you don't see a light at the end of the tunnel, if you are burned out or you want to prevent burnout, you got to get this book. It is really amazing. Dr. Dalton-Smith goes over the 7 different types of rest. She has an assessment tool in the back of the book that lets you see, hey, where are you on the burned out phase of each type of rest. And she also has a fantastic 30-day sacred challenge in the back of the book. So you have to get this. Dr. Dalton-Smith, where can people find this book and actually connect with you?
Yeah, so the best place to reach out to me would be at ichoosemybestlife.com.
Okay.
And from there, they can get to the rest quiz as well as to the challenge and some of the other resources we have.
Okay, great. And then we'll have all of that in the show notes down below. And Dr. Dalton-Smith has been so gracious and kind as to get us a autographed copy of her book to one special viewer. So all you have to do is share this video on your favorite social media platform and tag the Jolly Abraham Show in it. And then in the comment section of this video, I want you to type in the word sacred rest along with your email address. Once you do that, you're going to be in a drawing and we're going to draw the winner in 1 week to get her book. So Dr. Dalton-Smith, thank you so much for being here. It was such a pleasure.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
God bless you. Ladies, if you liked that content, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. And don't forget to share this video, especially to someone, a girlfriend or a sister, coworker that you know needs to rest. And then lastly, let me know in the comments below what you liked about this video. What questions do you have about rest that I could answer for you? I want you to be successful and I want you to live your best life. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.